Welcome to another episode of the Friends of Fantasy Benefits Baseball Podcast. I am Justin Mason, and we are live. And by we, I mean me and Matt Williams. Matt, how you doing?
Pretty good. I'm ridiculously pumped that baseball is this week. Real baseball, because it just seems like forever. And it was like this time last year, a little that they were shutting everything down. And I don't know, it feels like the spring training's been going on forever, and it went real fast all at the same time. And I'm just super pumped. And there's been so many injuries the last couple of days. It's just I'm glad the games are over, the fake games, and we can get the real games underway.
Someone about a week and a half ago I was talking to, and I can't remember who it was. It might have been Paul on the Sleeper on the Bus. Was all like, surprisingly, we haven't had like any major injuries, like outside of Forrest Whitley getting Tommy John. And it was like that moment just like cursed everyone. So I got to go back and figure out who said it, because I'm so effing pissed at them right now.
I know Drew Silva on the NBC Circling the Bases. He said the same thing. He said, there hasn't been any major injuries, and they're like, knock on wood. And I'm like, no, why? Why did you do it? And then, it's just like injury after injury after injury. It's crazy.
It has been absolutely crazy. And so far outside of my 1 gallon share that I took in the main event after he got injured, like I've dodged a lot of these injuries, but I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for like one of my big guys to get crushed. And I feel for a lot of the people who, I think Strasburg had injury concerns already, but still you weren't expecting what we saw earlier today where he was down 4 miles an hour, or the ruptured tendon in his calf that he does not need, apparently. I don't know. Some of these have been just really, really concerning. So before we jump in, we're going to do some news notes, and then we're going to talk about some of the big FAB pickups of the week in TGFBI, especially because some people spent some cash. Some people spent no cash, but some people spent a lot of cash. And so we're going to talk about some of those players. But before we do that, remind everybody where you can reach on social media, and then plug everything you do in the industry, because you do a ton and added more to your plate this year.
Mostly, I'm on Twitter all the time. I love interacting with everyone. I love answering questions. My DMs are always open. So you can find me on Twitter at Matt Williams, MATTWI77IMS, if you ever want to talk baseball. I'm mostly known for my player breakdowns. I do extensive player threads that are free on Twitter as well. Always, you can always ask me questions about those. I do a lot over at rotofanatic.com. We have our data monster, our own projections, which is a lot of free data. Check out rotofanatic.com. And then I'm over at NBC Sports Edge now. I host the Circling the Bases podcast every Monday, and also Turn 2 podcast, my own podcast too. So that's all the places you can find me at.
Yeah, and you definitely need to be following Matt on Twitter. Those player breakdowns, so awesome. Absolutely love them. It takes a little bit to read them, but they're fantastic. I
break it up with comedy and sarcasm and tons of animation. So it's like a cat with a laser pointer. I keep everyone's attention.
It's amazing. I don't know how you do so many of them on Twitter, but I absolutely love them. So people definitely go follow Matt, go follow all his work, all his podcasts. And let's just jump right in. And let's start with kind of the big news that kind of broke just recently. And that is David Price, who had been diagnosed with some undisclosed illness, which obviously means usually COVID, right? He's not going to be in the rotation, according to manager Dave Roberts. Dustin May is going to be the number 5. So who wins in this? Obviously, Dustin May, who I thought a lot of people thought was going to the minors, wins. But Tony Gonsolin in the bullpen, David Price in the bullpen, May in the rotation. Are you drafting any of them if you got remaining drafts left?
If I have drafts left, no, I'm not touching any of them. David Price, I don't know how he's going to do in the bullpen. I actually assume once he's healthy and everything's up and running, they probably shifts back into the rotation. I don't know if they have weird plans to piggyback people in the back end. Tony Gonsolin's still the one I want the most because he's the cheapest. Well, Price is now the cheapest. No one's going to draft him, but I think Gonsolin can have value in the bullpen still. Whereas May, I'm not sure about the innings. He has control issues. I'm not sure how that'll go. So overall, I'm not really interested because even at this point, Gonsolin's going a little earlier than I might take him. I'm probably targeting other guys. So yeah, the back end of the Dodgers, I don't know what they're doing, and I'm probably not touching it right now.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way about kind of the back end of that rotation. So we're talking about May, Gonsolin, Price. Don't really want to touch any of them. I love all of those guys in their own right. And if they were on a different team in a different situation, I'd probably feel a lot more comfortable drafting them. But there's just too many there's so many starting pitchers this year that are intriguing to me going around the same spots as these guys that it's not worth me. Joining us is Matt Thompson. Matt, how you doing, brother?
I'm good, man. Just wrapped up the P Live podcast, and we talked about this very same story. And
so, what's your take on it?
It's gonna be a mess, man. Dustin May's gonna be in the rotation this week. 2 weeks from now, it might be David Price, and 3 weeks from now, it might be Tony Gonsolin. I mean, and there's other guys. Jimmy Nelson's in the mix over there. They like him. He hasn't won a game since 2002, but he's
I'm a Jimmy Nelson stan.
I said that for you. Didn't you have that trivia question on the trivia the other day? Wasn't that about him on Twitter?
I might have. Oh no. That was I was actually
some starting pitcher that hadn't won a game.
That's Freddie Peralta.
Man, I'm rooting for Jimmy Nelson. I hope we see at least one more, just one solid game, so he can hang his hat. I did it. I had one solid more game, and I hope he does it.
Dude, I'd been on his bandwagon. I'd been on his bandwagon forever, Jimmy Nelson. And then finally, I was right. And I was doing my victory laps. And then he dives back into first base, and his career's been over since then. So, let's get pitchers stopping hitting and running the bases. Let's just end that, please.
Though. The Dodgers are the only team in the world. I mean, Tony Gonsolin can start Game 7 of the World Series, but he can't start them and can't crack their rotation spot.
There's a couple of weird rotate. The Dodgers AAA team and the Rays AAA team. I'd love to have their starting rotation.
Mitchell White's going to make an appearance this year. And he's a decent enough prospect. Josiah Gray's major league ready almost. Mm-hmm. Dennis Santana, the changeup artist, is there. They got insane amount of depth. It's just obviously David Price. and those guys are going to – just for May. I don't like May in fantasy because May's not going to miss a lot of bats. It's not his arsenal is more geared toward weak contact, and swinging strike rate's something around 17% if I'm looking at the right numbers, and that's just not prone for big strikeouts. He looks like he might have changed his arsenal a little bit this spring. He's living a little bit up with the fastball. Dodgers, as we all know, are kind of well ahead of the curve on pitch metrics and pitch design and sequencing and all that stuff. I mean, they're the leader. I think they're lapping teams as far as pitching development. But May is – everyone thinks, he's 99 miles an hour with the fastball, but he's more Zach Greinke than he is Garrett Cole as far as strikeout numbers and pitch-to-contact stuff. So
he's in the zone way too much. I think the major league average is 41%. He's in there over 50% of the time.
That's the game for him. He's straight out of 1999.
I think the fantasy everyone will follow Pitching Ninja, and then they'll see the GIFs, however you choose to say it, and they'll see all this magical stuff, but that's just not what he does. You'll see the swing and misses, but it's such a small percentage of what he does that he could do it. He could if he goes outside of the zone, but he's choosing not to. Kind of like Max Fried. He's not going. His strikeout total is probably not going up because he's a Cy Young contender pitching to contact. So I mean, unless you have a reason, you're not going to change.
Yeah. Someone in the chat just asked Brad. Would you sell Strasburg for May today? I would not, because I think you can still get more than May for Strasburg. Even though I would sell Strasburg for, I don't know, 75 cents on the dollar if I could right now, maybe even 50 cents on the dollar. I would not do it for May. I think you could probably get more.
I'm trying to think the lowest I'd sell him for. I'd rather have Ryan Yarbrough, but I wouldn't I know you can get more than that. I'm trying to think of how little I'd sell Strasburg for. And I'm not sure.
I mean, I think Ryan Yarbrough, I would totally do that, honestly.
I definitely would rather have Yarbrough. I'm just thinking I would try to get more back than that. But I don't believe Strasburg.
The Nationals, man. The Nationals with choosing Strasburg over Rendon with keyboard struggles on top of this has been ugly.
Let me throw some names at you for Brad to maybe try to go after. Would you trade Strasburg for Aaron Savali?
I would take Savali, and that sounds weird, but I would do it.
What about Urquidy?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. What about
that might be the line for me.
Marcus Stroman?
Yes.
Stroman.
Frankie Montas.
Strasburg.
I mean, he's defective as well, and I love Montas, but I would probably go another direction there.
What about Zach Eflin?
No.
Okay, so that's about the line. So we're talking about a round pick 160 in the NFBC main event ADP.
Yeah, you're basically pick the back end of safe innings with a little bit of upside. Like, that's where you're going. Like, I like it.
I personally would trade Strasburg for Eflin and Montas.
Okay.
No questions asked. But I was already scared of Strasburg prior to this calf stuff. This calf stuff just has me like completely like, you could not. I'm putting Strasburg right now with Lamet. Like, I'm not gonna. Yes. They're just not like. I got one draft left, and they're not going to be on that team.
You know what? I think I could. I think maybe I would pull the trigger on Montas, but you already said the other names that I was more interested in. So it's like when you're shopping for a TV and you want the 50-inch and you see the 70-inch, you're like, oh well, I see this. I'd rather have this. Like, I knew the other options were available. So, but
it's only $50 more.
Yeah, TVs are cheap now. It's crazy. I haven't shopped for someone in such a long time, but yeah, in general, yeah.
I bought a TV this week. It's going up in the office tomorrow. I can't wait. I'm so excited.
Are you one of those guys? Are you going to have like those people with like the 7 or 8 TVs that I see on Twitter?
I don't think my wife would let me do that. And she does come into the office, so I think that I wouldn't get away with it. So the next bit of news, Tommy La Stella day-to-day with a shin contusion after being hit by a pitch. Any worry on Tommy La Stella, Matt Thompson?
No, man. Stella's got some sneaky value. He'd always hit. He's just never really had the position or the role. He's always in the wrong spot. The Cubs teams and he's on were loaded in the infield, and Stella's always a guy that can hit. I'm not worried about it. Oakland doesn't have the depth there. Tony Kemp and Vima Machine and all them guys are not threats to Stella's playing time, in my opinion. Moreland's going to DH. So,
all right, Matt, what do you think?
I think Tommy La Stella's on the Giants.
Oh,
he's still going really late though.
Oh, holy! You're right.
No, I mean, I don't mind. I mean, where you're going, I don't. This doesn't worry me at all. I'm worried about that entire team platooning. But I actually liked quite a few of their players. La Stella's the one who screwed it up for me because he came in and all of a sudden, like everyone who had kind of like Wilmer Flores and everything, like it just kind of went up in smoke. So
what's Brandon Belt's status is tied to there as well. Belt should be ready for opening day from what I'm reading now. Earlier this week he was going to be out.
Who they just sent down? They sent down someone recently where it made me think that they thought that Belt was going to be ready. I think they did. I think it was just yesterday. God, I can't remember who they sent down. I'm like, blanking completely.
Yeah, this isn't not my finest hour. I had them on the wrong team, so.
Yeah, I can't.
I mean, they sent down
Wade when they sent down Wade Jr. When they made that move, I thought that they assumed. I assumed they thought Belt was ready to go based on that move.
Yeah, it looks like Belt's going to be ready to go. I do think this is going to be a massive platoon, and they're starting their first series against the Mariners, who has a lot of lefties. Mm-hmm. So I don't think they're necessarily thinking they're going to use Belt a ton because he's going to sit against lefties normally. So I like La Stella. He's going to be leading off, I think, at least 75% of the time, multi-positional eligible, better in on-base percentage leagues too. So I like La Stella as kind of a sneaky guy, and this doesn't, considering what the Mariners are probably starting with 2 lefties in their first 3 games, they might sit him out for this first week. So if you've got transactions for this week, or for this first week, probably leave him on the bench, but then get him back in when I think they're going to Colorado next week. So get him back in. All right, let's move on to the next set of news. Diamondbacks, they're saying they don't have a clear closer. This is Matt Williams and I were talking about this prior to starting. This is kind of a dagger in my heart because I thought Soria was pretty safe. Seems like that's not the case. In my most recent draft, I drafted both Soria and Crichton. If you have a draft today, Matt Williams, are you even dipping your toes in these waters, or are you just going, this goes into the bucket of bullpens I don't want to fuck with?
I'm less interested in like the Red Sox weird thing that they have, and like there's other teams I'm less interested in. I'm still taking Soria because it makes the most sense to me, and he's still cheap. This will make him cheaper, so I'll still take a shot there because with the injuries they have, I'm blanking on their ace for some reason. Zach Gallen, he's out for a while. I think that Luke Weaver has just looked so. I know spring stats don't mean much. He looks awful. And while I project they'll be a lot better. The whole team was really down last year. I think Ketel Marte will be good. I think Christian Walker will be good. they're going to be struggling. So I think that you put Soria out there till the All-Star break at least and trade him. I think that makes the most sense, and it's silly not to. We were discussing beforehand, there was rumors that he signed there for less money to do this. So, I mean, I'm going to look past the rumors because it's not like there's a slam dunk option behind him. Like, why not let Soria do it and try to get something for him to, give it to like Kevin Ginkel or Crichton or whoever else is, going to be the guy.
All right, Thompson.
Yeah, I think I agree with everything Matt said. I think you have to bump Soria. I think he was kind of in that last tier of guys that you thought had the job that you were kind of okay with as like third guy. Now he's just in the big pile of guys. And if you want to get real cute and real sneaky, JB Bukowskis is a very interesting name to grab if you're in a deep league. A guy they were using in like decent leverage situations in spring training and has nasty stuff. Probably would have been up last year, but had a car accident. Right, so obviously delayed everything. Back healthy, and the stuff is nasty. Not many relief arms have 5 legit pitches like he does. And the Diamondbacks have a lot of Levi Kelly is another big fastball slider reliever that could be up, not necessarily to mess with the closer spot, but he's there. But right now, I think it's Soria's job until he makes it not his job. And Soria's been around for a decade in relief. He's one of the steadiest relievers out there, kind of a mini Sergio Romo at this point, kind of just around forever getting it done. So no reason to think Soria won't. Right. Yusmeiro Petit. No reason why you could bet on Soria to fail, but if he does, Bukowskis should be a guy waiting because Yohan Lopez is kind of erratic. No, but Bukowskis has the command and the stuff, so he's a guy I'm interested in.
And let's also not forget, because, I mean, Caleb Smith's been awful, like Matt said. Luke Weaver's been awful. But let's also not forget, they're not playing at their home ballpark, even though they're in Arizona. So they're not having the aid of the humidifier. They're playing outside when they're, usually that's going to be a closed stadium, right? So I think their pitchers will get a little bit more luck from playing at home because we've seen the Diamondbacks play, better for pitchers. So I'm a little bit concerned about Caleb Smith and Luke Weaver. Not super concerned about Soria. I think he'll be fine. He's just one of those guys, kind of just a steady Eddie. And you're not investing a ton. I would, if you're in a draft and you take Soria, I might just handcuff Crichton to him. Crichton has looked good, and they give him the job. Yeah, pair him at the end with Crichton and hope that you've at least locked up Arizona saves. Though I think they're going to be the worst team in that division. So that may not be a good situation you want to lock down.
Would you rather because I'm still
the Rockies?
I'm thinking somewhat, like we said, I think we're somewhat confident it'll still be Soria if we had to bet. Would you rather have him over like the mess, anyone like in the mess in Texas or the platoon thing they're doing in Kansas City or, any of that? I'd still go with Soria, right? Are you?
I would rather have Holland. Give me.
Would you rather have? Well, didn't they say they were going? Didn't they say they were going committee in Kansas City?
I have not seen that at all. I'll double check.
Mike Matheny is not capable of doing a committee. I promise you.
I thought he had said that he was
an established guy.
For some reason, I thought I saw that he was going to consider using like Stallmont and Barlow and a whole bunch of guys.
Stallmont,
I don't think they're gonna.
It's kind of his fireman. That's kind of his fireman. The way that, tie game, 6th, 7th, 8th inning, you'll see Stallmont. But I think Greg Holland.
Maybe I could have imagined this.
I just don't see. I don't see Matheny doing that. Even last year, he went to Holland, and Stallmont was awesome.
All right, let's move on real quick though, and move into another muddled situation. Red saying they are not David Bell. They are not going to be using a quote unquote set guy at closer that all 3 guys could get saves. That's Amir Garrett, Sean Doolittle, and Lucas Sims. I don't buy this one bit. No, Doolittle's looked atrocious. Lucas Sims still working his way back from injury. And Amir Garrett, at least as of last night, had faced 9 batters and struck out all 9. So I think it's going to be Garrett. Thompson, what do you think?
It's Amir Garrett, too. I'm with you, man. You can't look any better than Garrett has this spring. He wanted the job. He set out a goal for himself in spring training to get that job, and I think he got it. So, I'm with you. I think I'm kind of calling his bluff here. You don't want to tip your hand, I think, and that's kind of what it is.
All right, Matt, you agree?
Oh yeah, he has tons of swagger. He's built to be a closer. I think they were joking about it on Twitter, and he just flat out ended the joke. He said, "No, I'm the closer. I want to be the closer. Make me the closer." Why not make him the closer? He looks good. He's the healthiest of the three, and he wants to be the closer. Let him do it.
Yeah, I don't know how you can tell a guy come in and compete for the job, and he comes in and competes the way he has, and then you go, "Nah, it's a committee." Like, then what's the point of competing for a job?
Yeah. Plus, he has that. He has that mentality. You need that, like, come in and crush the other team in the ninth, and he has that. Yeah. I mean, he's perfect for closing.
Yeah, I agree.
They need to. It's perfect.
All right, Odubel Herrera sent down, a little bit surprising, but not completely surprising considering he wasn't really playing last year at all. That means it looks like Adam Hazley and Roman Quinn are going to share center field duties. Matt Thompson, do we care?
Not really. The only thing you care about Roman Quinn is he might give you a handful of steals, but it's going to be at the detriment of something else. And then he probably won't stay healthy. His track record has been brutal health-wise. I still think Scott Kingery is probably going to get that job. I think Kingery is –
He got sent down too, though.
He did.
Yep.
He did. But I think he's too talented. I know they've messed with his swing since he came up. And that's – for better or for worse. I mean, he showed some power at University of Arizona, and he kind of messed with them a little bit. He hasn't shown that power really since, but I still think he's too talented. And Hazley, to me, is a fourth outfielder. So that's where I'm at.
All right, Matt, what do you think?
I mean, yeah, if you punted, if you ended up in like a 15, because 12-team league, there's always going to be better players available. If you're in a 15-team league and you did not get really set up well for saves and you could really use an option, sure, I could see putting him at the end of your bench if you have the space. If you have an interchangeable thing, I'd take Roman Quinn and see what's what. Maybe something happens. But overall, no, I'm not interested. It would be a very specific case where he would be a bare waiver wire for stolen bases, and he just is it's a last resort pick. And no one's doing draft champions. If you are, take a shot. But, unless you're outside of that, then yeah, I'm probably not touching him.
It's a good point about the draft champions because you got to shoot the moon for that, right? So there you go.
At this point, I don't know how many people are doing draft champions leagues though. So I mean, I think
if you
either on your team or not.
There's one at I think there's one at 7 a.m. on opening day.
Yeah, 7 a.m. Eastern. So it's at 4 a.m. Eastern for me, or Pacific. All right. This isn't on our notes or anything, but I was reading through Miles Straw timeline on Twitter, and someone asked him how he was doing, and he said he's going to be good to go for opening day. Anybody believe that?
He's Roman Quinn with a bats.
I don't believe in Miles Straw, so
I don't believe in him either, but he's going to run and he's going to play every day, right?
It's Chas McCormick season, everybody.
No, just stop that.
I wish McCormick could play center field, and then I would agree with you. But
I drafted him just for his avatar in NFBC. If no one knows what I'm talking about, he looks like an accountant. Oh, he literally looks like an accountant. Oh, it's fantastic. I'll send it to you. I'll post it on Twitter for everybody. If you're following me, I'll post it on there.
Yeah. But I understand chasing speed. But I think the leadoff conversation with Straw has finally stopped because I don't think that's in the cards anymore. And
I think they had officially named Altuve the leadoff guy, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Yeah, he's being hit in ninth, but he's still going to steal 15, 20 bags at the bottom of that lineup, before they replace him.
I don't know. I'm not confident that his bat keeps him around long enough. I think this is a team that I would not be shocked if they pick up an outfielder in the next couple of days.
Well, Brantley probably. I mean, a full season of Brantley, full season of Jordan, and the DH. They'll move
Tucker
people
in center
around.
field. Put Kyle Tucker in center field.
I think Straw will stay in the lineup by default. I mean, they even sent out Steven Souza. I mean, they just don't have a ton of available. I think Straw stays in the lineup just by default. I think they'll end up being injuries and he'll stay in there. I don't like him, but I mean, he's a much. If you need speed, he's a guy.
I think they addressed this mid-season, but I don't know that there's if they were going to address this prior to the season, it would have been done by now. They could have been in on Jackie Bradley Jr. They could have been in on a bunch of other guys, and they weren't. They're going to give Straw a chance because his defense will play a little bit. So, who cares if he's batting ninth? They don't.
Right.
National League bats pitchers ninth. So.
Yeah, no, I think the double lineup in the American League is fine. So yeah, like you said, if they were interested, if they didn't believe in him, they would have. Jackie Bradley Jr. ended up signing for basically nothing in terms of what everyone thought. So yeah, if they were interested, he would be in Houston right now.
Yeah, and I thought that's what they were going to do, but apparently not. So let's talk about some of the big fab pickups of the week. Because
real quick, did you want to talk about the possibly fake or non-fake Eloy news?
I missed the Luke Voigt news too. So actually. Let's real quick talk about Luke Voigt, and then let's talk about Eloy real quick. Luke Voigt out 4 to 6 weeks, torn meniscus. Yeah. This is a huge bummer for people who've already done drafts and drafted him. I've got him in the Battle of the Podcast leagues that Matt is in. Matt Williams is in. My wife has him in TGFBI. So I'm stoked about that she's missing him for 4 to 6 weeks. But if you were in a draft tonight or before the start of the season or even after the start of the season, would you be willing to draft him? And kind of where would you be willing to draft him? And then Jay Bruce, any interest there, Matt Williams?
Take a flyer on Bruce in a 15. You know what? I'd take him on a 15, I think. But yeah, I'm not taking Voigt. There was already some concern there. He had the plantar fasciitis, speaking of Jay Bruce, and we've seen how that affected his career. So you don't know if that was going to flare back up. Now he has the knee problem. He already has this football mentality of going go, go, go. So he's always going to get dinged up. So he's an all-power, no-speed guy, which you can find. The big thing for him is he was going to have a slightly higher batting average as some of the guys you get late. So, yeah, there's no real unless you have like a ton of IL spots, there's no real point to, I think, stashing him. I mean, someone's going to do it, but it won't be me. Matt, what about you?
No, I think you got it. And you touched on Voigt's mentality, and I think that's correct. He's the type of guy that's going to come back early if he might not be ready and kind of hurt you too. You know what I mean? But the power is thunderous. The exit velocity numbers are through the roof. Jay Bruce in Yankee Stadium, though, that is a little bit interesting, right? Because he's the one thing we know Jay Bruce has is the power. Short porch. Jay Bruce is a heavy pull right-handed or left-handed hitter, right field. You gotta like that at least a little bit. I think Matt's right. 15-team leagues. He's on the bench for the first week, but I think you kind of wait and see what you're doing there. But I don't mind that pickup.
Danielle picked him up in TGFBI to replace her Luke Voigt. So I think
pick up Kyle Isbell. That's the guy you should pick up.
Is Isbell making the team?
I don't think they've announced it yet, but they sent down Nicky Lopez, and they moved Merrifield to second base, leaving a hole in right field. So that's we'll get to it with Fab. But.
Yeah, roster resource right there. He's listed as the strong side platoon in right field. So very, very, very interesting. I liked Isbell when we saw him at AFL a couple of years ago. He was actually really, really impressive. All right, let's move into some Fab, and then if we have some time at the end, we'll answer some of the questions people have been putting in the chat. So feel free to add more questions. I don't know if we'll get to all of them, but we'll try. The biggest pickup of the week was Tanner Scott, who went for $400 in one TGFBI league. Now, let's remind people, TGFBI 15-team NFBC league, no IL, and these drafts ended about 2 weeks ago. And so some people had put a lot of money into guys like Jonathan Hernandez, or not money, but draft capital into Jonathan Hernandez, thinking they were maybe getting a closer there, and other guys that have gone down or lost roles since then. So clearly people are buying into Tanner Scott kind of news. I didn't get Tanner Scott. I think he had already been drafted in my league. But Matt Williams, what are your thoughts on Tanner Scott as the hottest pickup in the first round of FAB this last week?
I like Tanner Scott. The only problem is not as much as a concern, but I brought up earlier on Twitter why I'm a little concerned about Jose Alvarado. Not because I don't think he could do the job, because he's the only lefty in his pen. And 3 batter minimum, whatever. If you're the only lefty in your pen and Juan Soto's coming to bat in the 7th with men on, you're coming into the 7th. Tanner Scott faces that problem with Baltimore, and Cesar Valdez is right there. He can do the job. If I had to put my money, I'd say it's Tanner Scott. But I'm not going to be blowing that much money that some people were. So was I interested? I drafted him a few spots. So I didn't even need to, spend all this money in FAB, but I wasn't going to go there because I think there could be a committee. It just could go to Valdez. So there's just too many ifs there for me. So yeah, I believe Scott could do a good job. I'm not sure if they're going to allow him to be the full-time closer because, other than other than like Paul Fry. He's their lefty to get lefties out, 3-batter minimum or not.
Matt, what are your thoughts on Tanner Scott?
I think you're correct, but I think it's going to be more of a committee even than maybe – I think Matt alluded to a committee, but I think, Cole Sulser is a guy they used last year as a closer. He's still there. Dylan Tate has got sneaky stuff and was pretty good last year in the back end. And Cesar Valdez seems to be getting a little bit of buzz with that nasty changeup who can get righties and lefties out. And Tanner Scott, who has the best stuff of all those guys, but I think he would walk us if we have a good chance to reach him first base via the walk if we go up to face him. So, yes, I think he's the best skills-wise pitcher on that staff, and Baltimore is in no position to lock up, give one of these controllable arms a lot of – they come from the Astros, right, the front office. They're not going to let some of these young controllable arms build up save totals for arbitration years. They're just not going to do it. So they're going to mix and match, and there's going to be – for the 30 saves they might have, if we're feeling lucky, there might be, 2 guys that get to 10. You know what I mean? Kind of one of them deals. So
yeah, I don't mind drafting closers on bad teams, but if you already have a smaller pie, you don't want to split up the pieces among more than 2 people possibly. So
because if he's not getting saves, there's a good chance he blows your ratios for a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you guys have kind of nailed it, so I won't belabor the point too much. 5 guys on this team last year got saves, and nobody had more than 5 saves on the team. So, 60-game season, but we're still talking about a team that may only win 60, 70 games anyways. So, I don't mind taking Tanner Scott, and I have taken him in drafts, but it's because he's going so late that if it doesn't work out or he's only given me, a handful of saves here and there, I can drop him and move on to the next guy once I kind of locate the next guy. All right. Let's move on. Talk about the next guy, Josh Rojas, another big guy in FAB this week. People really, really excited about him. I actually drafted him, got my first share of him in the online championship draft yesterday. I'm a little bit excited, but I'm wondering if this is fool's gold, Matt Thompson.
That's a tough question. Trying to figure out. Hold on, my computer's. Go to Matt real quick. My computer's acting.
All right, Matt Williams. Fool's gold or not?
No, I mean when everyone's healthy, there's always the chance he goes down. But I think he looks good, and I think he'll stick in this lineup. So I think that he's relatively inexpensive. I drafted him too. As far as if you needed a middle infielder, yeah, I think he was one of the best guys available. We'll get to someone later who's interesting, like Jonathan India. I'd rather take my shot on someone that I think I've seen play that I think has an ability for at bats than maybe take a shot on someone that is a complete unknown. I don't mind if you had a need, but yeah, I don't like blowing a lot of my money on all the prices I've seen on some of these guys. So yes, I'm very interested. That's why I drafted him. I wouldn't have probably spent as much as everyone is on FAB. I don't know if that's a cop-out answer.
Yeah, one of the pieces of advice I gave Danielle yesterday when she was doing her FAB, it was the first time she's ever done FAB, and it was a little bit stressful and crazy for her. And as I told her, listen, unless you have a massive need this early, I'm not spending triple digits on any player.
Yes, that's perfectly said. You could get gold there, but if you don't need it, you're going to have a need at some point, and you want to have money to fix it.
Yeah. So I told her and she had some needs, and with Luke Voigt being down, she's also got Trent Grisham who's starting the year on the IL as well. So she had but there's nobody on the waiver wire in a 15-team league that is a fix for losing your I think 6th and 7th round draft pick.
Did she get Taylor Trammell to replace Grisham?
She got. Let's see. I know she got Jay Bruce, and she got. I'm now blanking on who the other guy was. Damn it, I can't remember honestly. All I can think is my FAB guys that I got. But yeah, I put some bids on Rojas, but I wasn't close in any league, and that's okay. It's totally fine. I like Rojas, and I think he's got some talent, and he's been red hot during spring training, so that's always good because I think it gives him a role starting out in the year. But again, unless I've got some massive hole at second base, and I don't understand if you left a draft with a second baseman, how you have that massive hole, because no major second basemen have been hurt. I'm not going to just blow a bunch of FAB on him.
Hey, what if you drafted Roughnet Odor? You're out of luck now.
Oh, man.
All right, Tom,
there.
You ready for this question?
Yeah, I agree with you guys. Rojas is an intriguing flyer. Obviously, the obvious added benefit with Rojas is the deeper the league, you can take more advantage of his flexibility that he's going to offer you. I still think he moves around a lot on this Arizona team this year, so he should accumulate. Looking at it right now, he should be second base and third base and outfield. If I'm not, that should be the eligibilities I expect him to have before the season's over.
I don't know how much he's going to get at third base with Escobar there.
Well, yeah, Escobar can move around too, and there's a good thought that they trade him because Arizona is not going to be very good. But
that's true.
That's fair, yeah. But that might not be till mid-season.
Right. But no, I like Rojas. I mean, not as much as some others. I think a lot of people kind of put him up with like Mike Tauchman, like lore for like guys that don't play too much, but he's a little bit below that. But the batted ball data for Rojas isn't that great. But in the sense, it's also been inconsistent playing time. He had really good numbers in AAA when he was with Houston. So give this guy a shot. Let's see what we got. It's going to be bad. He might as well be fun.
I think I like him because I think the at-bats will be there. Mainly because I'm not a Varsho guy. Like, he looked terrible when he came up last year. He looked terrible in the spring. He's probably going to be terrible if he came up. Like, he needs to be in the minors a bit more. And I'm not worried about him, like, taking at-bats in the immediate future. So I just think the Rojas at-bats will be there. And, at-bats are –
No, I think you're right. Yeah.
All right, let's move on to Emilio Pagan, another guy who's people spent a lot of money on FAB thinking that he might be the closer. I just don't trust it. Like, I mean, they brought in Mark Melancon. Why do you bring Mark Melancon if he's not going to be the guy in the ninth that got Drew Pomeranz there? Pagan was awful last year. Like, I know he's looked a lot better, but I think this is probably a committee of some sort. And while there will be a lot of wins in San Diego, I think they're going to, be a really, really good team this year, obviously. I just don't know that I want to spend the price that people are spending on Emilio Pagan. Matt Williams, what do you think on Emilio Pagan this year?
I think people definitely overspent like crazy. I like Pagan as a pitcher. I think it stemmed from one night when Pomeranz was still dinged up, and now there's news that he's going to be probably ready sooner than later. That the internal, like whatever, the front office wanted Pagan to close, and they said that I think that was the report, that when they talked internally about who was going to close, Pagan was the name who, quote, came up the most. Not that he was going to close, that his name came up the most. So I think people just took that little bit of information and ran with it, where I think you're right. You have three legitimate options. You have Melancon, who they brought in, who is probably the best fit to close. Any of the three can. So wouldn't shock me if it was. Yeah, they have a lot of options there. So for some of the money I've seen, it's like anything else. I'm not who gets more saves, Tanner Scott or Emilio Pagan. I'm not going to bet money on either. If Scott ended up with more than Pagan, it wouldn't shock me, just because Pagan has a lot of talented people he is fighting for saves with. So I think he should be. I think he should be rostered. I don't think he should be rostered well above the other two.
I think you roster him for ratios.
Yeah. Yes.
But you're not expecting saves. The thing with Pagan is he gives up too many home runs. He's an extreme fly ball guy, and managers are never too comfortable with it. He's never been a long-term closer really because of that. I like Pomeranz, similar. He's the best skill-wise. I don't think any of us are questioning that. The best skill-wise guy in the back end of that pen. But I think they're going to use him in the 6th, 7th, 8th when Bellinger's up with bases loaded. They're going to bring Pomeranz in. It's going to be kind of one of those type of deals. And I like Melancon really hasn't done anything but close. I know that sounds weird, but what else does he do for you?
Exactly. That's
not
what
there.
I said. Like you don't bring Melancon in unless you're going to make him the closer. Like that's
right. He probably doesn't agree to sign that if he's not going to be the guy. Because he's been the guy his entire. He signed kind of early.
Yeah.
And in recent drafts, like real recent ones, I've seen Pagan go above the Tampa Bay guys. I mean, now that Anderson's out, I'll take Castillo and Fairbanks over. I mean, I think I'd rather have them for Pagan. I think
I'm just staying out of all those situations. They're just all going to be nightmares. Like,
well, I think I like Castillo and Fairbanks. I have a couple teams where I drafted them both.
I like Castillo a lot, and
because I think those two will get saves. They'll have solid ratios. But they're cheaper. Give me if I'm taking a shot on these guys, give me the guys that are cheap. So if a guy like Pagan ends up without a helium and he costs more, then I'm completely out. I'll take a shot at the end, but if he's not going to be at the end, he's not for me.
We can all be honest and say we're kind of guessing, right? Like, these teams haven't said anything, and we're just kind of using what we think we know. And there's probably 10 situations where we don't have to guess, and it's just closers is going to be a mess this year. I'm not looking forward to Fab on closing because it's going to be brutal.
This is why I have been pro pay for closers. I know,
this year. This is everyone's already drafted. It's too late to tell you this now, but you got to this year. You just got to buy one.
I've been saying it all off season. Like, I want at least one, if not two guys. Yeah. I feel really comfortable that they're the guy, and that doesn't stop me from going and investing in other situations. Like, I can still drop Fab on a guy that I think might get a role later in case one of my established guys loses the role. But like, I don't want to leave a draft going, well, I'll just find it on the waiver wire, because everybody's trying to find it on the waiver wire. It's just it's going to be a nightmare this year.
Yeah, I made sure to leave drafts without anxiety from the closer situation.
If you do season. Right, if you can, and you can't punt saves either because there's an overall component, so you have to at least address it. And if you get 10 saves are better than 0. So you can't just completely punt it. You gotta. It's just gonna be so much. Like, even I follow the Cardinals and.
I'm staying out of that situation.
And that situation, they haven't told you what they're going to do yet. I have a hunch what they're going to do, and Hicks will be the primary guy, but he's not working back-to-backs. And Reyes is going to get those innings, and then Reyes, at the end of the season, should be starting based off his progression, how they want to use him. Gallegos ain't the guy, but Gallegos is getting drafted higher than all these guys. And they've proven not to go to him, so everything's a mess, man.
And so someone said, Romano. So it's not to spend all the Fab on Romano. I don't know that it's Romano. I think he might share that with Dolis.
Yep.
I agree with Romano. What you're saying. I am fine. I'm fine taking Romano early if you have a draft still. I do, because he's such a good pitcher, where worst case scenario, you have a stud. I think he'll get the majority at
he'll
worst.
Help you other ways.
Yeah.
Dolis is a pitch to contact guy. If he's not getting saves, you're not getting anything.
Yeah, but I got Dolis in the 26th round of my main event.
Oh, I have no problem taking Dolis. I'm just saying I'm okay investing in Romano.
And Romano went in the 7th round of that main event.
I'm not paying that price.
Yeah, I'm not paying that.
Rounds, I'll take the guy that might not have the job, but 19 rounds later, and if I can and then I can drop him in a week and a half if he doesn't have the role. So
I'll take Romano in front of Colomé. I'm not taking him in the 7th.
I agree with you. Yeah. Right.
All right. Jonathan India, the aforementioned Jonathan India, people really hot on him. It sounds like he's going to be playing second base, and he's already got third base eligibility in most leagues, which is awesome because once he gains second base, you'll be able to move him from CI to MI, second base to third base. It gives your team a lot of flexibility. I don't think he's a world beater by any stretch of the imagination. Like, he's not a league winner guy, but if he is playing every day, he could be an accumulator that's somewhat interesting. Matt Thompson, you're a prospect guy here at Friends of Fantasy Benefits. Talk to us about Jonathan India.
Well, you got to be interested in a pull-heavy fly ball guy in Great American Ballpark, right? That sums it down. India doesn't have any plus tool in the bag. His plus, if I was to say he has a plus ability, it's hitting the ball in the air, and could not be a better fit, really. So yeah, I question the defensive ability at second base, but they had Bukowskis there last year, so they really don't care about that.
And they just moved Eugenio
Luis Castillo might care. Luis Castillo might care about it. But India, if you're fine with 245, 250, 20 home runs and a 300 OBP, he might be your guy because that's probably what you can get from him. But he's not going to walk too much. He's kind of an aggressive guy. But at the same time, if you know what you're trying to do, like he does, he takes the pain away from him a little bit. But Yeah, there's no reason why you shouldn't be in on India for that situation. I don't know if anybody disagrees or not, but
he's the same thing for me. I said before, he's a guy I draft. He's not a guy I throw a ton of fab on because I don't think
100%.
I don't have a need that I'm not dumping. I mean, he's going for premier fab prices right now, and I'm interested. I mean, he doesn't have any at bats above AA, and usually plate discipline sometimes travels to the majors, and he had above a 10% walk rate. He had a decent OBP, so there's a chance that he takes that with him. But
right.
To jump from AA to the majors, we don't have any numbers in AAA, so that's hard to take to heart. So yeah, I believe in him, but yeah. As far as fab goes, I'm not gonna. There's probably no reason for me to go there. If I had a brutal need, I don't know. If I really needed someone in his position, I'd probably still go into. If I needed a second baseman, I'm going for Rojas because he was significantly cheaper. Like I would have put a bid in. I put bid in for India. I was not even close. So
yeah, I wasn't.
Right.
That's the main
people
thing.
are going to run into the issue, and I've heard this a couple different places, and I'm glad you brought it up, Matt. People talk about him not having at bats above AA.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. But at the same time, he was at the alternate site last year facing major league pitching for the entire summer.
Yeah. Oh, no, continue your point. I meant more of my point of plate discipline travels to
I
just don't have data.
I'm not picking on it by any means. I'm just saying I wonder, this is kind of a question I'm asking both of you guys. How much do you value that alternate site time? Because that's a very controlled environment. It's pretty much instructs. It's a lot of what we saw early on in spring training. You're not worried about getting 3 outs. You're just going to, you cut the inning wherever pitch counts fall. It's a very controlled environment, and you might have you might have a coach in the outfield running around catching fly balls because you don't have enough bodies. But at the same time, you're still facing Amir Garrett as he's getting ready for the season. You're still facing Lucas Sims. You're still facing TJ Antone, Trevor Bauer for the Reds last year. I mean, you're facing those guys pretty consistently over and over again. And like we look at like Bobby Witt, same deal, right? Mm-hmm. Never had an at bat above A ball, but he was in alternate site all year. It's just wonder how much you value that, because while that is true, it's also at the same time discounts what he did last summer, which I think should still count. Does that make sense?
I think it's so hard to quantify what it means
per team too, right?
Yeah,
because each team does it differently too.
I agree.
Well, like let's use Bobby Witt as an example. Like, okay, he was at the alternate site facing major league pitchers or high level minor league pitchers that might actually come onto the major league team in season. He's also seeing the same guys over and over and
that's
over
also
again.
Yep.
And like, so it's not like he's having, he knows what Jackson Kowar. I'm just throwing a random name out there. Like, he's seen him a bunch over the course of that summer. So, like, I don't want to overrate that he's getting it. I think it means something. I think it's impossible to quantify what it means. And so I'm not going to overthink it.
We're lucky enough. One of our guys at our Prospect Live, we have kind of a connection. We have a little bit of data from the alt site. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it transfers over, but by looking at a lot of it, we noticed that pitchers are down across the board like 1 or 2 miles an hour because you can't simulate a game. It's still practice. The adrenaline with that and all that. So it's all different, but I just wanted to not to go on a tangent. I'm sorry I kind of derailed our discussion, but that's just something I was curious to see what you guys thought about that, because I follow that stuff. That's in my world.
I think it's
interesting. It's also from from the inning standpoint going this year for pitchers. Like, some people were giving out data. We don't know how many innings some of these guys have thrown, and that's a big deal. So it comes down to, like, if I don't understand it, I tend to get rid of it in a coin flip situation.
And I think that's the best way. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I said it seems like a cop-out answer, but Jonathan Indy is a guy I'm very interested in drafting, because I'm only investing a late round draft pick where I was getting him. But yeah, if I have to do in-season fab where it's valuable to my team and I need to make smart decisions that I think will pay off, I don't think that's the best. I mean, watch, he'll blow up and everyone will be like, "Oh, Matt's an idiot." It's a risk that I think you need to take. And
we're going to have that again, because there's no minor league season isn't supposed to start till May, and it's rumor has it that's not going to happen in May either. But so these guys that are going to the alt site are in the same situation this year. Jared Kelenic, when he comes to Seattle, what's he You know what I mean? And so it's how much do you value that? I don't know.
He's going down to work. He's going down to work on his defense.
Right. They're trying to make sure he knows how to sign his name on a contract.
Exactly. Yeah. I think he's going down to work on his attitude, apparently.
He's pen shopping. Yeah.
His penmanship. Yeah, right.
All right. Let's move on to a Seattle guy, not Kalenic, but Taylor Trammell's making the team, because if you're going to bring up a prospect, why not bring up not your top guy?
See, now I said this on the Prospects Live podcast. I called this a month ago. I said they're going to bring up Trammell to show people that they don't care about service time because they brought up a prospect on the opening day roster.
Which is so transparently stupid.
But it's what they did. But Trammell earned it. I don't want to say he didn't earn it because he did.
Oh, he did, but so did Kalenic. I mean, just like
Kelnick was better across the board than Trammell in every aspect, and he's a better prospect in general. But Trammell,
that's why he's being held out.
Right, Trammell is.
I think Trammell's better than Kyle Lewis, for the record. That's a hot take, maybe.
Really?
I think when by the time Trammell gets all of his at bats taken away when he gets replaced by Kalenic, I think he'll be outperforming Kyle Lewis. Why don't I say that? I don't think he'll take his job. But I think that he will.
It's a competitive
I like him
in Seattle. There's a lot of mouths to feed out here because I'll run a scenario by you real quick. Like opening day outfield should be Trammell going left to right. Trammell, Lewis if he's there, he should be there, and Haniger. Haniger, we know the health track record. Ty France was unbelievable this spring. He's got to get at bats somewhere. He'll probably be the DH.
Mm-hmm.
Haniger probably the DH too to keep him fresh.
Mm-hmm.
Kelnick should be up third week of April.
Yep.
He should, in theory, if Lewis and Haniger are healthy and France is locked in at the DH, Trammell or Evan White, one of those two is going to lose their job.
I would assume it would be Trammell.
Why can't Ty France play second or third?
I don't think he can. I suppose he could.
Yeah, he's played second,
but
third,
Dylan Moore and Kyle Seager are there.
Yeah, I mean Seager, you're not moving off because of the contract and because he's still halfway decent at this point of his career. This has been my hesitation about drafting Dylan Moore, is because if Dylan Moore doesn't produce, I could easily see him in a short side platoon.
The only thing, I was out on Dylan Moore to start the season. Yeah. When I started digging into him, I did one of my threads on him. The thing that I actually consider his biggest plus is that management loves him. There's been so many quotes on, over and over overlap that they plan on taking this season that they honestly know they're not going to compete, and they want to give him a full 162 ups and downs.
You always love the guy that you found for nothing.
Yeah.
And the Mariners found him for nothing. So the Mariners, he's a victory for them. They're going to play him every day because it makes Dipoto and the guys look better. They found him. They're tied to him. All these other guys were brought to the system before Dipoto, essentially. They traded for Trammell. He's their guy. He's going to play. Ty France is also the same situation. Traded him from San Diego. He's their guy. But Evan White was there before Dipoto was there.
But Dipoto gave Evan White that contract.
Yeah.
So how is he not part of that?
I think that's contract is going to keep him in the big leagues.
So somebody's getting traded at some point.
Haniger and Seager. I can't believe Seager didn't go last year, by the way.
I think Haniger's the guy that goes. If Haniger's healthy, I think he goes.
Seager has an option in his contract that says if he is traded, it triggers the team option for $23 million next year. That's why he hasn't been traded.
You might as well have a no trade clause. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. He pretty much has a no trade clause. You would have to waive that.
But to go back to the discussion with Trammell, I just don't see guaranteed playing time past the first 3 weeks of the season, regardless of how he does. Because there's so many, And
I agree with you. I think that I think I got him for I got him for relatively cheap. So I think that there's just a chance he, whatever. I think there's a spark there that I think he can outperform. And he doesn't need to start for me. If he gets cut, then whatever. It was a minimum loss for me. It was a little more than you spend on just a bottom bench guy. It wasn't a $1 or $2 ad. Right. But I like him because I think if he explodes, if there's an injury in that entire time, which it could, if there's a delay in the minor leagues, there's a lot of ways he could stick. I'm prepared for what I paid. I'm prepared to lose him. when he goes. But I think it's
I
just
didn't get him.
risk.
I prioritized Isbell. I prioritized Isbell over Trammell, and I got Isbell. I would have got Trammell, but I dropped the same guy for both guys, so I obviously can't make the move. But, the issue with Trammell is he's always had the power, raw power, and he's always had the speed.
Mm-hmm.
He can't play right field because he might have one of the worst arms of any outfielder. It's like Carl Crawford style throwing. Johnny Damon, he's that bad of a thrower.
What happened to Johnny Damon these days, huh?
Oh,
you caught up with him lately?
I'll leave that one alone. But no, with the thing with Trammell, he might be able to play center now because he's improved a little bit defensively, but he's not playing right field. He physically, the arm won't allow him. He's showing the power, though, and that's what keeps maybe thinking in the back of my head that I'm wrong about Trammell, because the issue with him was everyone knew he had the plus raw power, but he never got to it in games. But this spring, he put on a show. He was pretty good this spring power-wise.
All right. Someone's asking, where would you put the over-under for at-bats?
For the full season?
Yeah.
350?
Yeah.
I'll say under.
I was going to say under 400. That seems about right.
Yeah, I think most projections have him at 375, and that seems pretty good. Pretty much in between where you guys just said.
Yeah, right.
This also could work itself out really easily because we're talking about Mitch Haniger, who has never been able to stay healthy. Kyle Lewis has never been able to stay healthy. This is why, I don't understand people drafting Mitch Haniger as highly as they have been. It's like, I love the dude. I would love to see him stay healthy and have a monster in. I think he could, but I have to see him stay healthy first. He just has never been able to do it.
I agree. It's a messy situation, but like Matt said perfectly, I mean, he didn't invest that much in Trammell. So if he hits, great. He's got a spot for him. If not, then he's dropped in 2 weeks for somebody else. I mean, that's ultimately what it is.
I like Trammell too because he does have plus speed on a team that really likes to run.
Bottom line, 15-team league, he needs to be owned because the upside is too much. 12-team league, you can probably leave him on the wire because the playing time is going to be inconsistent. That's where I'm kind of at with him.
For anyone with drafts left, you draft Haniger in an OBP league, the trades are allowed. He gets off to a nice little start, you ship him off. You ship him off.
And that's what the Mariners should be doing too. Maybe the White Sox will bite.
Yes.
Yep. All right, let's move on and talk about more guys because we're running out of time here, and we got a bunch more guys to talk about. Ian Kennedy was one of the big fab pickups. We'll add Matt Bush into this conversation as well. Do you trust that Ian Kennedy's the closer or that Matt Bush is the closer, or do we even care who the closer is in Texas, Matt Williams?
I don't care at all. That's my take.
Don't care at all. If Kennedy nails the job down, he's trade bait and he's not closing anywhere else. So right away you can.
If Matt Bush locks it down too, he's trade bait.
Matt Bush is a little difficult to trade for certain reasons.
If I'm investing in anyone in that bullpen, if I'm forced to, I'm still taking Joey Rodriguez or if I have a long bench, I'll take Jonathan Hernandez still.
Hernandez is the guy. Yep.
If you're forcing me, well, just Hernandez will be out longer, which is the only reason I put Joey in there. Maybe I think there's a good chance that he ends up getting some saves before Hernandez comes back. But I'm not interested in the other guys at all. No, thank you.
Yeah, especially with Leclerc, the news on Leclerc being out for the year with Tommy John. This is a wide open situation. I'm not investing any draft capital in any of these guys. If I can get one cheap off the waiver wire, maybe. But I'm not.
The thing with Kennedy is he's not going to miss a lot of bats. So if he's not getting close saves, you're not getting anything.
Yeah, exactly. Randy Dobnak signed a 5-year contract yesterday, and then people spent a bunch of money on FAB. This was one of the guys Danielle got in FAB. I really like Randy Dobnak. He has been electric in spring training with adding the new pitch. And I think he could be the follower to someone like J.A. Happ and be a sneaky guy for wins. Matt Thompson, what do you think about Dobnak?
Yeah, 140 innings and good ratios. And, I'm with you. You won't be driving Uber anymore. That's good.
Great for him.
The contract, what do you get, $9 million for 5 years? He's still got a lot of team control left. He kind of came up last year, so they pretty much bought out all of the RBers. And the Twins got a hell of a deal on this contract for Dobnak, unfortunately. But Dobnak also gets money up front, so it's good for him. And I think you nailed it. I think, he's the quirky kind of guy. The right-handed Ryan Yarbrough is your best case scenario, right?
Do you really expect 100? Did you say 140 innings?
125, 140. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think he'll end up starting. I mean, Matt Shoemaker is Matt Shoemaker. He'll go down. So I think he'll reach there. I think if his as he is as a middle reliever, I still like him. Like I said, I love all those middle relief guys. I think that in this year with the innings, they'll be huge. So yeah. I'm a big fan. But I think he'll end up probably starting.
140 is probably too much.
Because
let me back that up to about 120. I think that's But I think you're right. Based on skills, he might be their fifth starter.
I think he could be this year's Tyler Mahle.
TJ Antone? I don't know.
Well, but a guy who didn't make the rotation was going to be the bulk guy that finds his way into a rotation on a pretty good team with really good defense behind him. With a healthy Donaldson, Andrelton Simmons, Polanco moving over to second, good defensive outfield.
You described Alex Reyes is what you did.
I like Alex Reyes too. I don't know where he fits in. I think he will fit into that rotation at some point, but it's just hard to predict when. But I like Dobnak a lot.
Yeah, that's what do I. We all do.
Any last thoughts, Matt Williams?
On Randy Dobnak? No.
Okay. Carlos Rodon, I mean, out of nowhere having just an amazing spring. I actually picked him up in a few leagues via FAB. He's not going to start in the first weekend, but I'm pretty sure it's a pretty nice two-step lined up for next week. So, Matt Williams, any interest in Carlos Rodon?
Former closer Carlos Rodon, call him by his official title. I mean, when your own if you're a guy with question marks and your own team brings you back, that gives me confidence because the team that knows you the best is willing to take a shot. He's 16 strikeouts and 13 2/3. There could be an opportunity here because the back end, as good as the White Sox are, and as much as people want to anoint them the division champion, the back end of the rotation is a little iffy. So they're going to, whether it's in the bullpen or in the rotation, if he's pitching well, he's going to get an opportunity to go out there. So yeah, he's a guy who doesn't cost you much at all. Yeah, take a shot. If it doesn't work out, you move on. But yeah, I could see it. I didn't end up with any. I put in a couple of low bids, and I just ended up getting the guy above him, and I just didn't have any players left to drop for him, so I didn't end up getting him. But yeah, I could. I was eyeing him up.
What about you, Matt Thompson?
I forgot who we were talking about real quick.
Carlos Rodon.
Rodon.
No. The thing with Rodon that. I think Matt Williams, the point you made first with the being injured and your old team who knows your medical better than anybody coming back and getting you, I think that says a lot. But I was thinking about their lack of depth. For a team with World Series aspirations, the White Sox have very little depth in the upper minor leagues. And so Rodon's going to get every chance he gets. I mean, Kopech is going to be in the bullpen. He's going to need to be stretched out. So if something happens in the middle of the season, Ronaldo Lopez is probably the guy that comes up, and I think I take Rodon 10 times out of 10 before I take Lopez. Jonathan Stevers, interesting, but again, he's a prospect. Rodon's the guy. He's got that slider still. The fastball velocity might be a bit shaky from what we've seen this spring, inconsistent anyways, but that slider is still the best pitch he's got, and it was the best pitch when he was drafted, and it's always been there. But I agree with what you said, Matt. I think it's not costing you anything. He has the potential to rack up strikeouts. If he sucks, you drop him.
I think if he's healthy, he'll probably be one of their fourth or fifth best. I mean, I like Dylan Cease, and I've invested. I think there's a chance for a breakout there, but there's certainly a chance for a 5 ERA plus ERA there as well.
I was going to say, I think Rodon might have the higher floor than Cease if he's healthy. Yeah, so I'm with you.
But I mean, that's a big hit, right? Yeah. So I mean, we don't want to not stress that. He has had a hard time staying healthy. We also don't want to forget that he was the number one pitching prospect in all of baseball at one point. Mm-hmm. So giving up on a guy like Carlos Rodon, where you're getting him super cheap. I got him for $31 in FAB in TGFBI, and I'm pretty sure that was my release of Jonathan Hernandez. Yeah, so it's I'll take the shot. If he doesn't work out, okay, I wasted 3% of my FAB on him.
Right.
A lack of depth. I know you mentioned the lack of depth for a team with such high aspirations, and really. Not that this was a huge thing, but they had to go get Lance Lynn. I liked it. I was stunned they gave up Dunning. I thought that they would have moved non-major league pieces because they could really use Dane Dunning right about now.
I think the Rangers wanted a major league piece, and that's why. Like,
I get it. I suppose they did what they had to get Lynn, but they didn't go and fill that. They didn't fill the need or the loss adequately. I'm surprised. Go out and get what the Angels did. They loaded up on 9 or 10 retreads. Look at Jose Quintana. I bet the White Sox would love to have him right about now.
Yeah, the White Sox.
Why is Rick Porcello not signed? I know Rick Porcello's not good, but if you're going to get him for close to league minimum just to give him another shot to pitch, right?
I thought he was destined for Philly because Dombrowski. He brought him with him from Detroit to Boston, and I thought he's going to go to Philly with him. But the Mets would have loved that if Porcello.
They could have gotten Odorizzi. They could have gotten a number of guys that were like I said, Porcello's still out there.
Yeah, for a team with World Series aspirations that tried to spend big and missed on Machado and Harper. They brought in Lance Lynn and did nothing else. And unfortunately, we're seeing Eloy get hurt, and they don't have a piece to replace him. They have to make one with.
They signed Jake Lamb. What do you mean?
Yeah, there you go. But they have to put their other prize prospect who can't play the outfield, if that sounds familiar enough, and Eloy can't play the outfield. So now you got Vaughn in the outfield. And hopefully he doesn't get hurt. You know what I mean? So, because Andrew Vaughn's the real deal. I think we all know that, but. It's lack of depth is astounding because they're going back to Zach Collins, who they pretty much threw in the garbage can, but they have to bring him back because they don't have another option.
It's funny. Watch him have a solid year. They cut.
He should. I hope.
Who they cut? The Brewers' former catcher,
Jonathan Lucroy.
Yeah, so they're rolling with Collins. So
Lucroy has been.
Is there any way Collins gets catcher eligibility at some point?
He's got it right now, doesn't he?
No, he's UT only in every league except for Yahoo, I believe.
Well, Yahoo he breathed on home plate, so he's a catcher. But
yeah, well, every catcher, every player that comes up to bat is catcher eligible because they're at home,
right?
In Yahoo, but
I like Collins though. I think Collins.
I think Collins' bat is fine.
If you're in an OBP league, Collins should not be on the waiver wire.
It's just hard to roster a guy who's UT only not going to play every day.
He's going to though. I think he's going to play every day. He's going to have to.
Yeah, I think if Vaughn's in left field, I think he plays.
Yeah. The question is, can Vaughn handle left field?
They're a team to watch because,
as someone who's watched Todd Hundley play left field, I think Vaughn can do it.
He just saw what happened to Eloy. It's just
let's not act like Eloy was a ballerina out there because he's got a little bit of Marcelo Ozuna in him, and that's not good.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move on. Talk about Maikel Franco. We're gonna talk about two more guys, and then I missed a strategy question I want to just touch on real quick. But I think we touched on a little bit. But Maikel Franco, he was a big fat pickup. That's because he signed after TGFBI leagues had pretty much finished drafting. So, what are your thoughts, Matt Thompson, on Maikel Franco in Baltimore this year?
He is what he is, and he's better than Rio Ruiz. So Baltimore, the one thing they have a nice farm system, but they don't really have major league ready infield talent that's going to take over. So I don't mind the thing is I just wish he didn't hit the ball on the ground so often. Maybe use some of that raw power, but I mean, if you want a 20 home run, 250 guy, I play in a lot of 20, 30 team leagues, so he's already owned in those leagues. But 15-team league, you can probably keep him on the wire for now, I would say. I mean, we saw a lot of fat pickup with Franco, and third base is really deep, so that hurts him. But he's a major leaguer.
Every position is deep. It really is. I mean,
I
think outfield gets thin. To be honest,
I have a couple of Franco shares. I do. I have a couple. I mean, he's not starting. He's on my bench. I watched Jonathan Villar increase his launch angle at Camden Yards and have a career year in power to take advantage. If he can do that and maybe luck his way into a high BABIP season, you could have something here with Franco. And you'll know really quick whether it's going to work out. I mean, last year he hit 278 with 8 home runs in the short season. He played every game. So I think there's worse options for you. He's just a safe guy. He's a perfect guy to have on your bench, to fill in when necessary.
He's the most boring thing in the world, but that's fine sometimes. I think you got it.
I completely agree. So I'm not going to belabor the point. I'll just move it on, and we'll talk about Jazz Chisholm, who I surprised did not go for more, honestly, in some TGFBI leagues. But Jazz Chisholm is good. He's going to be the everyday second baseman, or looks like he's going to be the everyday second baseman in Miami. There's power, there's speed, and there's whiffs. So Matt Thompson, what are your thoughts on Jazz Chisholm?
I think you summed it up pretty damn perfectly. What's your batting average expectation for Jazz Chisholm? 220?
I was going to say 230.
I think you're higher than every projection system. I had to look.
He's Gene Segura with a crappy batting average.
His batting average against fastballs last year was 107. So I like Jazz. I do.
The high watermark in terms of batting average projections on Fangraphs is Steamer with 213.
There you go. But here's the thing, though. If he's going to get this run, and he should play in theory almost every day, they're kind of grooming him to be the shortstop. With Rojas has got 1 year left on his deal. Jazz should slide over next year, is the thinking I would imagine. Home runs and those steals, they're going to come. It's just, can you absorb the 200 batting average? And it's going to be really team dependent. But if you're in a 15-team league, there's nobody with 20/20 upside on the waiver wire. There isn't. I can promise you. Look at your waivers. There shouldn't be anybody like that. 12-team league, I wouldn't touch him. But 15, I think I would. There's a big difference. I would, and he's going to be riding the wave all year because the contact skills, and he's an aggressive guy. He's got some pull side power is real. I've probably seen Jazz play probably 60 games in the minor leagues when he was at Kane County over 2 seasons. He is the flashy guy. He's a funny dude. Like, this is the type of dude I love. This guy because he didn't get invited to the Fall Stars game in 2018. Right? He didn't get invited. He should have. He was probably the best shortstop on ability that was there. So what does he do? He bought the tickets right behind home plate. He sat behind home plate with 2 very attractive females and big chains on, so everyone knew he was there. It was just the best Jazz Chisholm move ever. But so I like him. He's going to be great in Miami. For your fantasy team, I don't know. If you're built to absorb a potential 200 hitter, by all means, take him. But I think he has the ability to kill you on the batting average. But points league play, not a chance. Don't touch him in points because he probably will kill you. But everything else, I think if you, like we talked about, if he's not producing, you cut him, right? But I think the upside is too great. Sorry to ramble, but
no, I'm excited about him. I didn't even put in too many. I mean, put in some modest bids. I didn't get him anywhere.
Yeah, I didn't either.
I mean, he had over a 30% strikeout rate in A ball, double A. Yeah. It's not going to go well for him this year. I think the Marlins, by handing him this job out of the gate, maybe overestimate their chances. I think this year, after their short season magic, I think he struggles. I think he gets sent down. I think this is like a Joe Adele situation. You didn't prove that you can necessarily, I think, handle or improve enough at the minor league level yet to. I don't know. I think, like you said, you got to roster him. The 20/20 ability is there, and if you have lightning in a bottle, and sometimes people just improve when they get to the majors. Sometimes it just happens. But if I had to guess, I would say the strikeout rate is going to be, not quite maybe like Bobby Dalbec territory, but maybe close.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I talked to like a Marlins scout too. I don't know if he's still Marlins anymore. I know they made a lot of changes in the front office and stuff, but a Marlins contact of mine that I talked to a couple times, especially when we were down in Arizona and all that stuff. They like Jazz, and they said he was going over some maturity issues with him. Is what the issues they said they were having. This is the quote that he told me, and I think it sums him up pretty well. It says, "We're not worried about Jazz Chisholm playing on a Friday night in Yankee Stadium. We're worried about Jazz Chisholm playing against the Pirates on a Wednesday day game, because the effort and the focus won't be there against he gets bored, right? You know what I mean? If they can keep him focusing online, I think that's the goal for them this year. And they might have something there, but you heard the story about Lindor in the minor leagues, right? Lindor was bored in AAA and didn't want to put, it's similar to that kind of mentality.
He's the perfect reserve option in a 15-team league because he's, I believe, second base and shortstop eligible. And like you guys have already mentioned, I think the ceiling is kind of, really nice, right? 20, like you said, 2020 from a guy who potentially is one of your last picks in a 15-team league. And he covers both shortstop and second base for injuries, which is great. But yeah, we also have to factor in the floor is low, but that's okay for a guy who's going to be on your reserve list, right? If it doesn't work out in spring training, he's striking out 29% of the time. If he keeps it at 29% of the time, that is totally playable in this age of fantasy baseball.
Oh, here's the thing when you say that, because I think that's perfect. Because if he keeps it there, he's a probably a poor man's Rafael Odor, who would have a little more power than him. So no one really wanted to draft him. Obviously, he gets released, but before it looked like he was going to play every day. So I'm not saying anything. Jazz, has the upside. He can outperform. But I'm just trying to tell people, like we're talking about FAB, the difference between drafting a guy and blowing a lot of FAB, like high thing is, what are you, if you're realistically expecting what batting average out of Jazz, he's probably Rafael Odor is what you're likely to get. And if you weren't interested in him, I think people people have unrealistic expectations of rookies at times.
If you knew Jazz had the starting job locked up, he gets drafted. That's the difference, I think.
And I mean, there is a difference in the walk rate, which is beneficial to a major league organization. So Rafael Odor has always been like a low walk rate guy, right? And so the fact that he doesn't make a ton of contact then too and strikes out too much really hurts his major league value, which eventually hurts his playing time and now being cut. Yeah. He's going to find his way onto a major league roster at some point. But I mean, Chisholm, he had an 8% walk rate last year. In 2019, in both stops in Arizona and Miami, he had a double-digit walk rate. So, this is a guy who's shown at least the ability to take a walk, which I think is important for his major league playing time, if he's going to strike out at a 30% clip. But, if he can, I'm not saying he's going to carry over exactly what he's doing in spring training into the majors, but if he can get anywhere close, I think he's hit 260 with a 28% strikeout rate, still walking, showing power and speed. Let's say he's a 240 hitter, but he goes 20-20. If that's your reserve,
oh yeah,
guy, you just got a huge bonus.
My guy Eddie Elmiger on our Prospects Live pod brought up Ian Desmond's season. There was a season where he hit 236 and had 20 and 20. Mm-hmm. Who's to say Jazz can't do that? Because he absolutely could.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think it's more of a, know what you're aiming for and be willing to cut him loose if it looks like he's absolutely not going to do it, because, it's basically just managing expectations thing. Yeah. Just because he's a shiny toy doesn't mean, he's going to have growing pains like any other rookie, probably. You just got to know when to cut bait.
The difference between drafting a guy and FAB is if you draft a guy, you're more likely to hold him longer, right? FAB, you just cut the cord.
Yeah. You shouldn't be willing to hold him longer just because you drafted a guy in the 26th round. I know what you're saying, but I'm saying to the audience, to people listening or watching live right now, if you draft a guy in the, after the 20th round, he should be cuttable if you see something for some reason that makes him cuttable. Don't just hold on to him because you went, well, I love Cedric Mullins. I've got Cedric Mullins on 11 of my 29 teams. I'm holding on to Cedric Mullins even though he's not playing every day and moved out. That's not going to happen with Cedric Mullins.
People have a fear of loving a guy and cutting him and having him perform for another team. People hate it.
No,
and it's the sunken cost fallacy.
Yes.
Which just don't. I definitely don't want to make I'm not going to be the guy that cut someone after the first week and a half, right? Mm. If I spent 6 months researching, which I have spent at least 6 months researching, I'm not going to be week and a half, this guy's done, But at the same time, I'm also not going to be afraid to cut someone if I see something better on the waiver wire. Because if you took them in the 20th round, that meant you prioritized 19 rounds of value above them. So you obviously didn't like him that much.
I think you said it perfectly. He's a perfect guy to put on your bench and watch what happens from there. If you have to start him, you have to be super realistic about what he does and what's available on the waiver wire as far as what you're realistically going to get. And, either you have the ability to look past it or you don't. But, just
if you're playing in a regular league, like a 10, 12, 15 team league, and you have to start him, you made a mistake somewhere in your draft.
Yes. And the thing with this is he's not going to be a guy that's going to be in my lineup this week anyways, because I don't have any injuries at the second base or shortstop position. Those positions you already mentioned earlier, have remained relatively healthy.
Yeah, the only one is Dansby Swanson's dealing with a hamstring thing right now. But
right, there's really no scenario where you're going to play Jazz over somebody in your lineup. And then, next week's FAB period, I think the only real activity you'll get from me, unless somebody gets hurt, that changes everything, is going to be looking at starting pitching matchups and maybe if some of these closer situations get ironed out. Other than that, from position player wise, if everyone stays healthy, I really don't see many FAB bids from me.
I mean, and Yancey in the chat, and I'm putting it up on the screen.
Yeah, that was weird.
For those who are listening in podcast version later, he's saying he was stunned how little people were bidding across all of my NFBC leagues, and I understand that because I spent 6+ months. I start my research for the next season in August, right? So, now we're in March. I've drafted my teams unless there's been an injury and there's a reason why I need to drop someone. Why would I have drafted these guys and then all of a sudden drop them? Unless the only major moves I made were because of injuries or major news changes. And so, I mean, I think this kind of plays to the question I want to finish out on, which was, something that Matt Williams and I think I touched on a little bit already earlier, but let's just kind of wrap it up with this is, what is your early season FAB strategy? I know a lot of people are like, I want to be aggressive early because then you get the player for the whole year, but you also don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, because you're like, ooh, I'm going to go pick up the shiny new toy after you've spent all this time doing the research, to get ready for the season. So Matt Williams, what are your early season FAB strategies?
I'm actually really conservative unless I have a need or there's someone where I could see a ceiling that I really care for that's going to help me long term. I won't go there. And I didn't see that. I mean, I put some bids on, the Taylor Trammels, like I said, and some of the bullpen guys are fine, but I don't think any of them were needle pusher. It's more like smoke where, we said Tanner Scott may not necessarily get it because he's a lefty. Emilio Paganis, there's a lot of mouths to feed. There's no one out there that was really, obvious. If there was like a major, if Liam Hendricks went down, sorry, I'm not trying to jinx anyone, knock on wood, then obviously Aaron Bummer for some reason is not owned. You really bid the house to get him, but there was nothing like that. So unless there was a major injury, like I said, there's middle infielders that went down, and then you have to go get someone. There just wasn't any of that. So I'm willing to fill needs, and if there's like a major position that opens, then I'll bid on that. But otherwise, I'll hold on to my FAB bucks early because I'll probably end up being aggressive earlier in the year after I see a little bit more data when we start to see who actually is playing. We mentioned with the Mariners, we'll see what their plan is. If anyone gets injured, things will start to happen. We're going to want money available. In this particular case, I just didn't have any needs, and I think a lot of other teams didn't either. I mean, there was a couple of crazy bids out there. I know, Yancey, you said not a lot of people maybe bid in yours, but there were some aggressive people out there for some. But,
the tag team league that you and I both in was insane.
I think Dave McDonald spent like $400 bucks already.
Yeah, which I mean, we spent like 120, but like that one of it was a misclick. I don't know how we put Alvarado at $86 because there's no way I meant to do that, but I'm still a little perturbed by that. But
Nancy nailed it in the chat though. You draft when you're drafting off the information you have. FAB pickups is new information or stuff that you're just learning. Prospects that have roles, you're finding out how bullpens are going to fit, all that stuff. And I think that nails it. If you're not willing to adjust, you're doing something wrong, right? Like that's just how it has to go.
Yeah, but I also don't want here's the thing. So we draft off the info we have at the time, and obviously in some leagues that info has changed, and that's why this first FAB period for some people were very crazy. We also don't have complete info yet, right? Because the season hasn't started, and so this idea that the guy who spent $400 on Tanner Scott, one, I think that is just a poor use of funds, and I have no idea who it was. I mean, I could go look it up, but I'm not going to. That's just a poor use of funds, especially because what happens when they do a committee or Cesar Valdez becomes the closer week one? Like you're still working with incomplete information at this point because the season hasn't started. And so I think going overboard prior to the season, especially, or even in the first week or two of the season, is a little bit insane and a poor use of resources. Now, TGFBI is a little bit of a different animal. And there's one of the things I explained to my wife yesterday is, and something that when Scott Jenstad came on and kind of taught her how to do FAB, he mentioned, unlike other FAB leagues with money, TGFBI, because it's an industry league, because it's free, half of the people participating are not going to be caring by midseason. And so you're not going to be going up against as many people in terms of FAB dollars spent. And so you can afford to be a little aggressive early because halfway through the season, those people aren't paying attention anymore and you can get guys for cheaper. But in most leagues where you're going to have people paying attention for the majority of the time, I think it is a bit insane to just blow all of your FAB super early, because then what if Eloy went down after the first month, right? Instead of going down now. If you spent $400 of your FAB in the, before the start of the season, you now have less of an opportunity to replace a guy like Eloy or replace the closer that does get Tommy John halfway through the season because you blew it before the season even started.
Yeah, it's tricky for the people that like punt, like TGFBI or just NFBC, the people that like punt saves in order to try to, compete on the waiver wire. You said Tanner Scott, Ian Kennedy. We don't know if they have the job. Like you said, incomplete. It'd be one thing if the Diamondbacks came out and said, Steven Kreiken, the closer every day. There's a guy you bid on because there's news. He's the everyday closer. You go get him. But we don't have any of that. So it's even though you need to bid on available targets, if you don't have, you have to compete in saves. It's just very difficult to put this much money out there for people that, again, incomplete information. And
I could have been more on board if we were talking about a better bullpen situation, right? Mm-hmm. So because we're still talking about, okay, let's say Tanner Scott is the guy. How many saves is Tanner Scott getting? 20? Like he's not a 30 save guy, right? Because he's on the Orioles. Even if he's the full-time guy. So like if this was a Liam Hendriks situation, Liam Hendriks goes down, Aaron Bummer is anointed the guy. Yeah, I could understand spending $400 on Aaron Bummer because he's on the White Sox. They're going to win a ton of games even without Eloy. But the Orioles situation, the Arizona Diamondback situation, the Texas Rangers situation, these are some of the worst teams in Major League Baseball. Why are we going crazy over that?
And then you have some of the people like you bid the tons of money on India. He went for a ton. Again, I'm not crapping on India. I do like him. Where would he have gone realistically in drafts? Do you think if we knew what we knew now? What round would he have gone in compared to where the amount of money you're spending on a closer you necessarily need? I think some people just don't measure things. They don't even out correctly. You're spending more in FAB more than they would have been worth in your own draft sometimes with certain players. And I think that's what's happening with the closers, the closers, because we don't know. I mean, Ian Kennedy, I've seen him go for a lot. I mean, in regular drafts, he'd still be going towards the tail end, and he's getting bid up like he's a sure thing. So, I mean, not to beat a dead horse, but
Ian Kennedy's min pick in the main events is 244, and that includes some of these, so that kind of gives you an idea. At best, he would be going around pick 240.
Yes. So I mean, and people are paying for him. It is what it is, and it's not good. Yeah.
All right, that's gonna do it for this episode. Matt, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. This is a blast. This is my first time talking to the other Matt here too.
Oh yeah. we DM'd a few times, but yeah, it's a good to have him on. I'll have to have you on again, Matt.
Definitely. I didn't get to do the usually when we have two mics on, because Mike Warner's on, and we'll bring on Mike Gianella or another mic in the industry. I do the good Mike and evil Mike. I didn't, because Matt Thompson was late. I didn't have the chance to do good Matt and evil Matt. But
my bad. I would have been evil once.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Of course you would have. The guest is always good. Matt Williams, remind everybody where you reach on social media, and then plug everything that you do.
Sure. Follow me at Matt Williams, MATTWI77IAMS. You can find me over at NBC Sports Edge. I have a new column coming out tomorrow, Edge Behind the Numbers. Every week I'm going to be looking at all this, pitch mix, velocity changes, all those different things behind the scenes that they're not going to report on popular sites that I'll be doing every single week. Rotofanatic.com and then the Turn 2 podcast.
All right, Matt Thompson, where can people reach you and what are you working on?
MD Tomp, FWFB, Prospects Live, slugging along through our prospect lists. Draft season's over. National holiday next week. We're getting excited.
I cannot wait. I cannot wait for opening day. I'm so excited. I changed my menu around at the house for dinner so that way we could have ballpark dogs.
Oh, there you go.
Like we're gonna have burgers.
Both you guys are very active on social media. I'm sure either one of you guys doing a live stream for opening day. I can imagine.
Mike Kurland is gonna do a live stream that I will jump on. But I'm not doing my own because I do enough already.
Yeah, you're the busiest man in fantasy baseball. I get.
We're doing a live draft that morning that we may stream.
Oh man, can't get enough, huh?
We're doing one right at 9 a.m. Eastern.
Got to sneak it in before the buzzer, huh?
We're gonna try to make this like a yearly thing. Get some. I'm sure day of I'll be like, why did I schedule this? But I'll get some coffee together. One more draft right up until game time.
I'll make sure to check on you about 9 o'clock. See how you're hanging in there.
So, Matt, in our Battle of the Podcast DM group, which has been so active, it's been great. Hundreds of messages per day, just bantering. It's been really fun getting to know everybody in that league. So I'm so glad that Zach invited me and that I actually accepted this year because it's been just a blast getting to know Matt Williams, getting to know Rob DiPietro. I just can't
DiPietro,
who I love. Getting to know the Rotosaurus guys, Dave, Jake, and like everybody else that's in that chat. So Matt posts, "Hey, we're gonna do this" in there, and all I could do was just like put gifs of "fuck you." I'm not doing this. Fuck you. Fuck you. Like, nowhere you. I got 29 leagues this year. I'm not adding another one. I've got one more draft. Absolutely done. You can reach me on Twitter at Justin Mason FWFB. You can email me or the show, Friends of Fantasy Benefits, at gmail.com. I'm writing daily over at Fangraphs, pretty close to daily over at Fantasy Alarm this year. Also on the Sleeper and the Buzz, the TGFBI podcast, obviously the Friends of Fantasy Benefits podcast. And is that it? That might be it. I don't know. There might be more. Who knows? But that's going to wrap us up for this episode. For Matt, and myself, thanks for listening. Have a fantastic baseball season.